I'm very glad. This is my first talk as faculty leader, so I'm excited about it. So I will be discussing broader impacts, especially for career awards, for career proposals. So I would like to first go through a little bit of historical background, where these broad impacts come from, why they are done. And then I will get into the more technical questions regarding how these broad impacts are evaluated, and then also how you can go and can develop a killer broad proposal section. The first thing is that a little bit of history. In NSF there was not, NSF introduced broad impacts as a criterion into the peer review system. Before that there were mentions, there were encouragement, but it was not really included in the peer review section. And then that happened in '97. What happened at the beginning is that basically people, for the most part, I wasn't writing proposals at the time. I just actually finished my PhD in '97. So, but the thing is that basically people just basically ignored it. What happened is that Congress was very re-emphasized a lot the importance of broad impacts, and then gradually NSF and also the scientists start writing broad impact sections. And nowadays, especially in a career award, if you don't have a broad impact section, if you don't have one, or even what you have is really, really poor, your proposal will not be funded, no matter how large is the intellectual merit of the proposal. And on the other hand, if you have an excellent broad impact, something that really catches people's attention, well, you have competing proposals, probably you will come on top. So if you have proposals that are about the same and they say, oh, the broad impacts of these proposals are fantastic, are really incredible, then most likely you will come on top. Because I will talk about that, but the way that the proposals are reviewed, this is not like NIH, where you just set a number and then everybody above the number gets funded and everybody below doesn't. Basically the program director has a lot of leverage in terms of what proposals will be funded. So the thing is, even if the intellectual merit is outstanding, the program director may decide that he wants to or she wants to fund these other proposals because the broad impacts, for example, are excellent. That has happened. I've seen these things happen. That's something to take into account. So basically, that's the bottom line. Okay, so having said that, I would like to first state how broad impacts are defined, because people sometimes, and that happens a lot. I've been to quite a few panels, especially in the last few years, and there are still, even now, people that still don't know exactly what broader impacts is. So let's just go to the basics, and that definition of broad impacts, NSF has never provided a really clear definition, but it has also tried to just convey the idea by example. So basically, what it says is that broader impacts may be accomplished through the research itself, through the activities that are directly related to the specific research project, or through activities that are supported by but are complementary to the project. So, that doesn't really tell you exactly what we mean by NSF broader impacts, but if you follow reading, there is kind of a sheet that basically tells you what activities are considered to be broad impacts. The definition is very broad, it's very large, and encompasses a lot of activities that go beyond what you think as research. So, for example, NSF values the advancement of scientific knowledge and activities that contribute to the achievement of societally relevant outcomes. So, for example, full participation of women, persons with disabilities, and underrepresented minorities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Here we like to emphasize that when we talk about underrepresented minorities, there is a tendency to think about ethnicity, and certainly ethnicity is one of the underrepresented minorities that you can consider, but there are many more. For example, here in Iowa, you have people from rural background. That's considered, if you come from a rural background, that's considered also an underrepresented minority. Or, for example, another that you may encounter is first-time college graduates. So if you are the first time that you go to college, or the previous members of the family never went to college, that is also another aspect that also falls into that category. So I'm just saying that there is more here than what you may naively think as being the underrepresented minority. Improved STEM education and educator development at any level. So everything that anything that involves working with teachers, working with educators, that's anything that will help these teachers, these educators to just get a more to be better teachers, better in contact with what they are going to teach. That's also part of broad impacts. Increased public scientific literacy and public engagement with science and technology. So, for example, you know, if you can go to, I don't know, see, for example, you have contact, say, with a country club, and you go there and you just give a talk about how important science is. That's also a very good broad activity. Or you can go to other social centers in wherever and just talk to people about science and just explain why science is important and just increase their knowledge about what science means. That also is extremely valuable, especially those days, because I will mention that. But one thing that we should not forget is that as scientists, most of the time, or 90% of the time, our work is funded by government agencies. And we have to convince people, I mean, people that actually vote in elections, but also politicians, that why they should fund our work, because there are always a huge list of priorities that, I mean, they have to, I mean, science has no enemies in Washington. Everybody likes science, but the question is there are other things that seem to have more pressing priority. So we have to convince all these people that they should find science because this is an important thing for the society as a whole. That's actually one key aspect of broad impacts that I will emphasize. Improve well-being of individuals in society. So if there is something in your research that would help improve the well-being of individuals, that's actually something that it is by itself broad impacts. Development of a diverse, globally competitive STEM workforce. Again, I mean, you know, there are many areas where, you know, you are developing the workforce that will enable the U.S. to have these very unique people that will be able to do amazing things. Which actually, another thing that is important is partnerships between academia, industry, and others. So, if, for example, you have collaborations with industry, that by itself is already a broad impacts sector. So it's something you should emphasize, not just in the intellectual merit, but also in the broad impact section. So I will collaborate with the industry and we will do this thing and so on. I mean, obviously it has to be appropriate for the funding. You want to make sure that you are not doing something that the industry should do by themselves. But, I mean, you know, that's something you should emphasize. Improve national security. And again, that's one that, I mean, it's very important in the sense that there are many challenges that we have regarding national security. So if, for example, you have some, your research can lead to something that may allow to, for example, detect anthrax. That's something that is important, and that's part of the broad impact section. That by itself is a broad impact section, so you have to emphasize these type of things. And then, of course, increased economic competitiveness of the United States. That kind of goes with the development of a diverse, globally competitive STEM force, but there are other things also here that you can emphasize. And then enhance infrastructure for research and education, so you can make whatever infrastructure or research you develop available for people to come and learn about science. That also leads to many of the other, things that we've discussed. And of course, you know, those things can be, I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be many things at the same time. And when that happens, you should emphasize that. So those are examples, but, you know, all broad impacts basically fall into one of these categories, but in general, it's not restricted. So if you have some, you can make a case that there is some other activity that was not listed here, probably you can do that too, because that's not, that doesn't attempt to be exclusive. Okay, one other thing about broad impact is that you will still, even now, sometimes, I mean, every time less and less, that there are scientists that say that, well, you know, that's kind of a distraction. I mean, they should be eliminated. I mean, we scientists, we don't have the background to do these things. Well, that is something that I've heard, you know. It is less and less frequent, but you still hear. Well, here the thing is that the role of broad impacts, despite of these comments that you may hear, the reality is that it has not ceased to grow. I mean, actually, to the contrary, every time become more and more prominent. There are here examples of recent things: Complete Reauthorization Act of 2010. Congress included a requirement for NSF to attend broader impacts. December 2011, review of the merit review criteria, release of the NSF new proposal, and every time there is a revision, the broad impacts are always enhanced. I mean, it never happens that they go down. To the contrary. So I like the broad impacts, but not everybody likes it. But that's really besides the point. I mean, the point is that the revision raised the bar on how broader impacts are evaluated and apply the same 5 criteria, and I will get back to that, to evaluate the intellectual merit of the proposals. So broader impacts are not going away, they are becoming more prominent. So whether you like them or not like them, as I say, I happen to like them, but the truth is that they are here to stay, and you have to take them seriously. Okay, so that's in the broad impacts. They are becoming more prominent. So the next thing is, so what I would really like to give broad impacts a positive view. I really think that it is something that we should be doing. And here are examples by Robert Frodman. He has been writing a lot about broad impacts. And here basically says broad impacts 2.0 should be with 2.0 means that it's becoming more and more prominent. There are a few more things, but it doesn't matter. The bottom is it should be viewed as an opportunity for us to apply the creativity that we exercise with intellectual merit to identifying and articulating how the results of our research have the potential to benefit society and to contribute to the achievement of a growing list of desired societal outcomes. Broader Impacts 2.0 exhorts us to go beyond our traditional notions of supporting graduate students or disseminating project results through publicly available web pages to actively promoting the contributions of our scientific knowledge to policy, our economy, our culture, and pressing societal needs. So basically I have here underlined a few things. Creativity, I mean, that's the idea. There has to be some element. And traditional notions, okay? And contributions to our scientific knowledge, to policy, our economy, our culture. What I'm trying to say is that what broader impacts is they provide an opportunity to expand our research to issues that we care, issues that are related to our research. They are not decoupled from them, that we care because other than care about our science, we also care about other things. So that is our opportunity to just have an impact on other things that are related to our research, but that they are important to society, that we care. They also provide an opportunity to showcase the value of our research to those that fund our projects. And those that fund our projects are basically the taxpayers and also the Congress. So if you can just, reaching to people in Congress is not easy, but we have to explain them. I mean, why this money is well spent, why this money that they are giving us to develop projects is something that benefits the U.S. and also explain to the taxpayers that ultimately are the ones who are really paying for our research. And basically the idea here is that we as a scientist, we must take a leading role in making the benefits of research apparent to society. I mean, there was a time when scientists would get money to do research and they wouldn't care about, they would just care about getting papers published in the most prestigious journals, making advancements, making an impact in science. Well, we have to make an impact not just in science, but also to our society. We have to, get people to understand that we are doing is actually very important for the future of our society, that it is at the same level as, for example, all the different programs that have to do with national security, or they have to do with well-being of human persons. Okay, so the next question is how broad impacts are reviewed. And basically, the review criteria for broad impacts are exactly the same ones as they are for the intellectual merit. So they say the type of thing that that the reviewers are looking for when they evaluate broad impacts are the same that they do when they look for intellectual merit. So basically, what is the potential for the proposed research activity to advance, to benefit society or advance desired societal outcome. So that would be the first question that they would look in order to evaluate how the broad impacts proposals are evaluated. The second criteria is to what extent do the proposed activities suggest and explore creativity, original or potentially transformative concepts. So the idea is that the broad impacts have to have an element of creativity, an element of originality. I mean, I have to say it's not at the same level as intellectual merit because, well, but I mean it cannot be just, there has to be a research project there that it is developed. Is the plan for carrying out the proposed activities well-reasoned, well-organized, and based on a sound rationale? Does the plan incorporate a mechanism to assess success? And I will get back to that because that's actually quite important. And this is becoming one of the aspects that NSF is looking more and more. I have to say that one of the problems with broad impacts that I've had is that in general, it's hard to evaluate what the success is. It's reasonably easy, or there are many metrics to evaluate how successful the research is in terms of the papers that you publish, in terms of the citations, in terms of invited conferences, in terms of patents, in terms of many things. There are many metrics depending on your field that allow to evaluate research. In broad impacts, that has not quite happened. I mean, once you develop your broad impacts, NSF, the program director will ask you a transparency, like explaining how your broad impacts, what happened there and what you accomplished, but not much beyond that. I mean, recently the NSF is moving towards more an assessment-based mechanism. So that is something you should consider because you are working for the future. You are doing it for now, but also you are working in the future because my impression is that this will become more and more prominent. They will find for mechanism for assessing it more and more. How well qualified is the individual, team, or organization to conduct the proposed activities? You have to make a case that, whatever it is that you propose, you are qualified to carry out and that you will succeed and that you have all the elements to make it happen. Are there adequate resources available to the PI, either at the home organization or through collaborations to carry out the proposed research activities? Well, that is also looked at that. So the thing is, if you are collaborating with some institution or we are collaborating with some, organization, well, make sure that you have a letter of support so that it shows that you have contacted them, that you are, that everything you write there is going to work. They will look at these things. So don't just say, "Oh, I will work with them." No, just get the letter of support because that's important. So basically, that's how they are reviewed. The next question is, who reviews these broad impacts? Who are the people who actually read this? Well, the people who read this are always, with a few exceptions, but pretty much always are the same people that review the intellectual merit. That gives you a little bit of an advantage in the sense that the people who review the intellectual merit and people who review broad impacts, obviously they are not experts in broad impacts, while the people who review the intellectual merit typically are experts on their area of research. So that gives you a little more leverage in terms of being able to impress them. More often, these researchers are in your field, people that you know either personally or through their papers. All NSF proposals are reviewed either by a panel or by mailing. That's the other thing. There are proposals that are reviewed by a panel, and there are reviews that are proposals that are reviewed by mailing. I've seen both, and also for career proposals that happens. There are panels for career, and there are also mailing. I've reviewed many mail proposals for career, and there are panels too. I have to say that in my experience, the way the broad impacts are reviewed are somewhat different. Usually, if it is a panel, the broader impacts are analyzed very extensively because what happens is that you have the program director, or actually two program directors, sitting there and asking, what is the broad impact? And then people would have to say, they do this, they do that, they do that. They will go through another round. Are those broad impacts sufficiently original, are sufficiently good? And people will have to read more carefully. Usually with the mail-in review, the broad impacts are not reviewed as rigorous as with a panel. That's another thing to consider. In either case, whether it's one or the other, the program directors are the ones. I think that the broad impact, the broad impact, the program directors really take a very careful look most of the time. They really look at any comment they get. They try to have an idea about how original, how much time that person has spent, how much interest there is in the grant. And that's something that they really take very seriously. So in either case, whatever is written about broad impacts, the program director will read it very carefully, will try to get a good sense of it. So if you get really glowing reviews, that will impact very favorably the program director. So we are going now to the next section, which is how to prepare a strong broader impact section. And here, well, I'll give you some of my experience and experience of others. And well, I mean, that's the best I can do. Because also, what happens is that there are other, every division of NSF has its own little twist. So here we will have people from 3 different divisions, and we'll see if we are able to cover it all, but I cannot guarantee that's the case. But in any case, I'm pretty sure that this will give you a very good, strong idea of how these things work. So the first thing is you have to find an issue that you care about. I mean, that's very important because, if you take some issue that you don't particularly care about, most likely what will happen is that you will not follow it through. So this is something that you care about, whatever it is that you care about. Education at all levels, at the represented minorities, geographic dispersion, public outreach for science, something that you really would like to do even if you didn't have an NSF grant. The next thing is, and that's actually something that I would really like to emphasize. I know it sounds kind of silly, but actually, do not wait till a few days before the deadline. I mean, if you see that you are going to submit your grant in July, start now. Start now thinking, okay, so what are we? And then you put a little bit of time now. You don't have to put a lot of time saying, okay, I want to do that. Then you just say, okay, I will collaborate with whoever. So you try to really start with time and don't wait till the last minute. Do not reinvent the wheel and try to team up with other existing projects. I mean, the idea is that, I will get to that, but there are many other projects going on. And that I will explain that I tried to reinvent the wheel and it turned out to be a lot of work. Include metrics. Another thing very important. How the success of your activity will be measured. So you say, I will do this, I will do that, and we will measure the success and the impact of these broad impacts by doing this, and have quantitative metrics. They say, I expect to have that many teachers coming. I expect that these teachers with this knowledge will be able to do this, and I will reassess how good this was by doing this particular survey, or by doing, or by looking at these other numbers. Prepare strong broad impact section once, and then for your, typically you will submit more grants than just the career, and then you can reuse it. Meaning that with you can extend in the same way that you do research. You just in this case you can reuse a little more than you can do for your research, because if you have a program and you write another grant, then you can consider enhancing your program. And then you can reuse most of what you've done and all the collaborations you have and all the projects that you've been working on. And one thing that is becoming more frequent is that it always looks good if you include a few references in the same way that you include references for your intellectual merit. So saying, there are papers on broad impacts that you can find in particular impacts, and then you can just put, based on these papers. That's what I'm saying, that it's good to do these things with time, because especially for a career, because in a career of work, the broad impacts are looked at very extensively, very thoroughly, and usually it's part of the proposal. Broader impacts are typically at the end. Usually it's the last section of the proposal. That's another thing. It doesn't need to be very long. Usually 1 page or even a little less than 1 page is more than enough. But make an effort to write it very clearly, that it is clear what you want to do, and it explains very well why do we want to do is original, why it is important, and what is the impact it will have. Okay, so how do you go about selecting what broad impacts you want to do? So at ISU there are many broad impacts, and you can visit our webpage of SP at ISU, and here's what the webpage looks like. And here you go, you have home, about, blah, blah. You go to programs, you click on programs, and then it will take you here. So that's information for faculty, but you go to programs, and here you have all the programs, and here they are all the programs that we are aware of right now that are related to broad impacts. Here you have benefits to society, broadening participation, community college, economic competitiveness, expanding infrastructure, and so on. Okay, so for example, if you take K2 teachers, Here what you have, that's one I was involved. So here you have all the different programs that we know that target to this particular broad impact. So you go there and you will find here all that we are aware. If there is one that you are aware that we don't know, just please tell us and we will include it in that web list. So basically, you have all the information you need if you want to team up with an organization here at ISU. It's all here in that web page. Okay, so now I will talk a little bit about my experience, and then Miley and Didier will talk about their experience. So I also wrote an NSF career, and I was fortunate that it was funded. And then what I did is at the time, I had some contact with high school teachers, and it's clear that they needed, that there was a lot of the need for help. There was a deficit in science in the sense that there were many high school teachers that, I mean, they really, there was a clear need for higher education for that. It was at the time when the IO4 curriculum was being developed, and the people didn't know exactly what is meant by teaching by inquiry. So that made a good, high school students might get interested in research and other thing. And the other thing is that it could have a good impact in terms of our recruitment efforts in terms of science. And that's also another part that broad impacts, which is broadening participation in STEM fields. So basically, that's what I thought. And then I thought that we could organize an event for high school teachers, and then the high school teachers could bring their students, and then we would have every year one event. I mean, mine was inspired by one similar event that they have at Drake, which is in the biology side, but okay. And I thought it would be easy to get high school teachers involved. Well, it happened that it was. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, you start to understand, well, it's not, you know, you have to bring them here, but also convince them why is that they have to come here, because as they are always very busy, and, you know, you have to make a case that it's worth their time coming up here. I started from scratch, and I had very little experience in major outreach activities, and I have to say that I would recommend that you don't start from scratch. I would recommend that you try to team up with existing things. I think it's better, but, you know, what I accomplished, basically, the initiative was President's Day. President's Day was, I mean, that changed last year, but was the professional development day for Des Moines teachers, and that's actually the largest district we have in Iowa. So by doing it President's Day event, you would guarantee the participation of all physics, chemistry, and so on high school teachers in the Des Moines district, which is the largest. And then we could have some funding for others that do not have professional development day, they could come. Okay, and I had a budget for that. I will get to that. An event that would take place on President's Day, as this was professional development in Des Moines, and then we worked, I mean, we were able to organize that event with more than 40 high schools in central Iowa. We know the teachers, and we get feedback from them. And then this grew. I mean, as a result of what we had, with Craig Ogilvy, there was a proposal to the Carver Trust that was funded, was submitted and was funded, where that was a larger proposal. It was like $80,000 a year, where we would bring high school teachers, and that was an event that rotated from the 3 universities in Iowa, starting at Iowa State, and that was in 2012, and then University of Iowa and University of Northern Iowa. So basically, what are the metrics? Well, teachers and students that have participated in our event, we have, you know, how many, the growth with the Carver Trust grant on modeling, and also the other thing is whether, I mean, there are many other things here, but, well, I mean, this is the number of students that have joined our department, and you can see here that this is when the grant started, and, well, you know, we've had a big increase, so that's another metric. I mean, I don't try to convince you that this is all exclusively out of this program, but, you know, I mean, something that definitely contributed. So anyway, I will stop here.